Welcome back to the channel. All right, it's time for the December update of the Battlegrounds tier list. I'm going to do my best to always coincide these with the end of a season, right? We'll have seen the victory track and the gladiator circuit, which means 3-4 different metas, all of them accentuating different attackers, different defenders. But if we pay attention each month and we keep an eye on what's going on, it'll continue to give me an idea on like, here is some kind of rank up advice, my idea, my evaluation on dual threats, top shelf attackers, and defenders, the whole thing. And of course, as always, I always run this by the MCoC Illuminati. In particular, I want to give huge thanks and shout out to Nerd. Many of you saw him. I hired him for a coaching session. I learned a tremendous amount about BGs. He's a phenomenal Battlegrounds player and offers that coaching to anyone. I will link in the description of this video the video where he went ahead and announced it. He's worked with a tremendous amount of people that I know. They've all come back with rave reviews. So if you're really looking to get better, get the hands-on coaching, you can get it directly from him. Now, if you're interested in heading directly to the rankings, which I understand you might be, you can go to the timestamp. I'll put that also probably in the description is where that will go. If not, you want to pay attention and look at this legend. We'll talk about that quickly. And then I will also remind everyone that there will be a screenshot size of this spreadsheet put up on my Twitter feed. You want to follow me on Twitter to go ahead and see that. And I'll do that about 2 weeks after this goes out. Give my channel member, Adam, he's the one supplying us with all those incredible stats for the Vega Battlegrounds Championships. He puts these together for me, put it up there. We have some fun talking about it and all that good stuff. We'll have a good time. And I know that can be really helpful to people. Now, the legend is here. You got the little fencing guy right now for your dual threats. This means they kind of lean more offensive, right? So much of Battlegrounds is how you not only set up your deck, but then how you draft and then how you place that draft. So they're leaning more offensive. Or when you see the defenders, they might have a potential offensive use. I wanted to point that out because it does get a little tricky to say, you know, like Rintra, is that dual threat defender? Actually, he's an amazing dual threat, but you'll get the point. Then the cross swords means defensive leaning or potential defensive uses. You'll see that more on the attacker side. The little bomb there means they're running the recoil trees. You really need the recoil tree to make them a dual threat. You see that with Elsa up there with her defensive capabilities. I think we're all familiar with that. We got the little video game monster that many of my viewers are used to, for me, representing Go Ask Sweeta on the monthly tier list that I do. And then I'm introducing a new emoji here, and we're going to use that more and more. And I think people who just look at the screenshot are going to wonder, like, what is that? What is that? It doesn't make any sense. They may even get angry. But if you watch the video, which hopefully you're doing, if you're seeing this part, you are watching the video, it means it's not their fault. They're too good. They are too good. And people are weighing their defensive decks or their attacking decks to handle them because this champion's so good. As a result, in some ways, it is decreasing their relative value. I think over time, we might see them promoted. We'll talk about this, though. As you're going to see, there's a demotion or two, and it pains me to do it, but I do think it's reflective of what we're seeing as we go through all these metas, as I go through them, as I watch Battlegrounds videos, and then, of course, as I host my own tournament and I watch some of the best players in the world go head-to-head. All right, now let's go ahead and jump into the rankings. I have a little microphone signifying who I'm going to talk about. There's really no change as far as additions into the tier above all for the dual threats. But the idea behind this means it almost doesn't matter the meta. It almost doesn't matter the meta, right? Even with Rich Get Richer, which we had for 4 weeks there in this last season that's just coming to a close, where Nerd advised me to really go weak on tech and heavy on cosmic. We still had Nimrod in there. Warlock makes some sense, right? But that's what I want to point out is it almost doesn't matter. These are champions that if you've got them at the highest rank available, the highest SIG, whatever it is that they need, you're probably still putting them in there because they're just that good. Very few metas are going to remove them from it. So there they are, right? We could talk about them. We've talked about them in various videos before. I've already discussed what the legend means, so you can go back and take a look at that if you skipped ahead and you're now wondering. But there they are. Let's go and move ahead to the top shelf dual threats. Okay, for the top shelf dual threats, the kind of general definition of this means is they're a little bit more meta dependent. In fact, quite a bit more, because there's only so many champions we can rank, and I know we're all trying to build this best deck we possibly can. And so as we've continued to go through, that's why I said we talk about keeping an eye on the overall process as it's happening, but also the nitty gritty, each week meta. What are we changing in? What are we changing out? I want to have the microphone next to the champions we're going to talk about in this video. I will quickly point out America Chavez is getting buffed. I don't think it's going to help her much defensively, so I think she's still going to stay there, even though I do believe her attacking prowess, let's call it, has increased significantly. I put out the video on that. Make sure you check that out if you're wondering what I'm talking about. I think she's going to be a real weapon in Battlegrounds for you, not just when you're wanting to reverse that battle ability combat power rate, or ability power rate, not combat power rate. Wiccan, I've recently taken my Wiccan to rank 4. I will get that video out. I do think there's a little bit of newness with him. You're really not wanting to parry him, or you need a champion that has cleanse. He's gonna cause defensive problems. We've seen that in my Battlegrounds tournament already. Also, offensively, you know, you're the presence of Gallon and Hulkling, champions that are with a lot of buffs, but they're so strong, right? Hulkling and Gallon are both in the tier above all for dual threats. Wiccan rinses both of them. He's fantastic. He's phenomenal from it. I really like him. I think we're going to see him. I think there's times where he's going to be in the tier above all, not always, and that's why he's in the top shelf. That's a really great example of the difference right now in my thinking of dual threat versus tier above all. Still incredibly valuable and a great specialist attacker too. I love having my rank for Wiccan in my deck. Okay, moving on through, the next one we're talking about is Spider Supreme. Now, Nerd, who's insanely smart, thinks maybe there's an argument to be in the tier above all. He wants to kind of take a little bit of time with that. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but like I said, he did a detailed review on this for me. I happen to use Spider Supreme in my matchup against Karate Mike, and despite the score, like if you just look at the score, he did beat me 3-0, but it was very, very close. And all three of them, at least two of them, were exceptionally close. And in fact, I really thought I had won one of those and was going to push it to a fourth match there now, or set. One of the issues was I used Spider Supreme for Hulkling twice, and he does beat up on Hulkling. Like, it's the fight's never in doubt. What the issue was, and I run Mystic Dispersion 5. The issue was is that I kept getting pushed to my special 3, and of course I kept losing on time. There was just almost nothing I could do about it. I was using my special 2 as quickly as I can. Now, maybe a Spider Supreme player who's better than me or who has theirs at rank 4 would get that Hulkling down faster. I don't know. And Spider Supreme's only job is not Hulkling, but that is a fight where you're really wanting to use him, right? Like, we've got a lot of counters for Super Scroll. You're often probably using your Tigra or something like that, or America Chavez is going to help you with these things. So I'm a little more weary on Spider Supreme. I think he's good right there. He is a tough fight, getting used to him. I do have the little monster there for him because he is new. If you've got some strong feedback, and let me know your scores that you're getting to in the tier that you're playing in, because that's also very relevant here. But if you're using your Spider Supreme, and you're having great success with them, or you're having the same issue I have where you're like, I run Mystic Dispersion 5 because it's so helpful to my defense as well, but it's pushing him to his SP3 and there's nothing I can do about it, I'd really like to know. It's very helpful to everyone. Moving along, Titania. Okay, so Titania, and again, I do have the offensive leaning there. I think once you get used to fighting her, DLL talked about this a lot in his video on her, she can be sidestepped. So there's the newness factor, but I think as folks learn to sidestep her, meaning they kind of going to back up while she's unblockable, unstoppable, and all those terrible, terrible things, I think you're going to handle her. But she also, Karate Mike used her to destroy my Quicksilver. I was very disappointed when I saw that score. He's also a phenomenal player, so I don't think we should gauge everything based on what Karate Mike does. But if you really wanted to play at that top tier where he and players like him are playing, she's phenomenal offensively, took out my Quicksilver. I think right now the newness is probably why she's a dual threat, but I want to put her there because I do think anyone who's going unstoppable, indestructible, and unblockable has some defensive capabilities as well. Time will tell if she's going to stay in the dual threat tier or if she's going to move down to the pure attacker tier. I'm also very curious on your thoughts. And then Spot. Nerd said he feels strongly that there's actually an argument to be made for Spot to potentially be the top dual threat science champion in the game. I understand what he's saying. I'm seeing these fights out of my buddy The Strand's YouTube channel and also YouTube channel Steel22, and I believe Nick136 really enjoys Spot too, but I think that's all in the CCP. Now, Steel did a really great video on Spot in Battlegrounds with a series of fights, and it really did impress me. And he points out that, like, look, this is all rich get richer meta, not really the one for Spot. So if Spot can be used that good as a dual threat in a meta that's not meant for him, he probably does deserve the tier above all. But I've specifically put him here because he's not in the crystal. I talked about this in the Cosmic Champions overall ranking. Spot is weird. It doesn't shout out to me, here's where you're going to use him. I think time is going to tell, and the game is going to let us know, and really smart players are going to figure that out. If you have experience with Spot, use definitely offensively and defensively, please also let me know. Let me know your scores in the tier or level you're playing at, because that is really relevant, right? Like Steel did show himself taking out a rank 4, I believe it was Dr. Doom. He took a lot of hit on the block, but the score was very, very impressive, and Steel is playing at a high level there too. So Spot, I want to call that out. Do not be shocked if in a month you see Spot all the way up at the top science champion in dual threats. Moving along, we have Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde has been demoted, and I don't think she's deserving of the heart emoji, because I don't think it's so much that people are stalking their defensive drafts with Nimrod and Omega Sentinel and things like that to stop her per se, but they are there, and it does completely turn her off. Additionally, I think folks have learned how to fight her. Now, she can still cause problems, and she can still cause problems for a lot of the attackers that are frequently brought into decks and drafted. And even if you know what you're doing, if you kind of forget and you forget her phase mechanic, or you try to punish when she's still phased after that special, she can cause some real problems. Plus, she's so good as an attacker, so she's right there. She could also be lifted into the attacker tier purely, but I like the dual threat still. I do think they are a good foundation for building blocks of a deck. So that's where she's at. She's fantastic. It's not so much about her, it's just kind of the community learning a bit more. Guardian is phenomenal. I do think that there is an argument for him to be in the tier above all as well, but there's often so many Mystic champions who can neutralize, and then also Cosmic champions who can armor break, that the thing that makes him so tough on defense can get taken away. As a result, I think he's more in the top shelf, but we've seen how phenomenal he is as an attacker when he's especially at that highest rank that's available. So right now that'd be like rank 4. Penny Parker is she wins the award. She wins the award. She gets the first use of this emoji. This is the first time it's being used, and it's not her fault. She's literally too good. Penny Parker was a menace for so long that we had to figure out alternative ways to fight her before we had true counters in the game, and then we got a series of true counters, right? Gore is being buffed and clearly going to be a force to be reckoned with. Hulkling already is phenomenal. In my opinion, one of the absolute hands-down best champions in the whole game, and then Gallon is as well, and they both just rinse her. Plus, people are bringing in Hyperions and your Odins and things like that. Everyone is bringing and making sure they can handle Penny. As a result, I think she still has tremendous value. I've recently taken mine to rank 4 to Sig 200, but it didn't feel like I missed it when I didn't put her in my deck for the Rich Get Richer meta, because everyone had so many answers. Maybe other metas will come along and show us, no, it's fine. She still provides so much value, or she forces your opponent to draft a champion. But the problem is, if the champion they're drafting to handle her is Hulkling and Gallon, they're handling other fights too. This isn't like someone drafting Toad to handle Fury. Toad's not even 100% shut down of Fury anyway, but additionally, Toad's not handling that many other fights for you, whereas Gallon and Herc are. So again, it's not that Penny's not great. She is, and she's a tough fight. It's that people have answers in their kits, and those answers are phenomenal elsewhere too. So it's relative. It's all relative. Infamous Iron Man, Iron Doom. He's fantastic, and a lot of you let me know on the tech rankings that you think he's really going to move up. You're finding a lot of uses for him. Now, I actually messed up against Mike in my match because I forgot that his armor up is a true armor up buff, and I actually sent myself to a special 3, but I was using him against Bishop. He was destroying that fight, and Bishop is such a menace that it's almost like the inverse of what's happening with Penny, is that Iron Doom handles such a menacing defender so well that may push him up. But he has other uses too. If you've got a lot of experience with him, let him know, or let me know. I don't think it's unusual or a coincidence that some of these champions are, I'm not totally sure. I don't want to put them higher and lead you astray and then be like, have to demote them later. They all aren't out in featured crystals yet. And so not that many of us have experience with them, and we're not finding all of those niche uses that will make them go from a very great dual threat to a phenomenal dual threat. And then I have to at least mention Nova after Nova destroyed me and was such a problem. All the matchups with the Sire, problem for myself and Mike and Lags and everyone. He can really be a menace. if you don't have a good answer for him. So Steve Sire, shout out to you and your Nova love. And as I was doing all that talking, I realized I didn't have Gore up there, and mainly that's because he hasn't been buffed yet. So we haven't been able to see him in Battlegrounds in his buff form. Now, Rich Kid Richer made him a better attacker for sure, able to take advantage of all those buffs he has. But here's the other thing is, I honestly don't know. There are a lot of answers to him that are often in people's decks, because decks often have so many mystics, because they make good defenders, and then they can handle him so well. If you have Gore and you're using him without the Rich Kid Richer meta, so this is people who've made the Gladiator circuit and playing in those other metas, how did he work out for you? Was he still a defender? Was he still an attacker? Was he good at both? Was he neither of both? I really need to turn this to the community for you to let me know. I know he's in the featured crystal, but this feels very similar to these other champs we talked about. We're not sure. So few people had him, and then his is even accentuated because the meta for the friendly track, or for the friendlies and the victory track, accentuated him significantly. So let me know. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, now for the tier above all attackers. Now this is similar to the tier above all dual threats in that it almost doesn't matter the meta. I want them to be that good to be here, that they serve a purpose. You're going to find ways, and maybe you have to dive in and know them a little bit better than you do other champions. You can't just pick them up and play them and destroy, but you're going to find ways, and that's how they deserve to be here. They all also, for the most part, ranked within their tier, but we'll talk about that as we kind of go through. The Mystic Champions, I don't think that is a shock to anyone. I would say that I would kind of put Tigra, Juggernaut, and Hood on a slightly different tier than Diablo and Longshot, but Diablo and Longshot I think deserve to be up there with the others as far as, me only having two tiers. But I do think there's a slight difference. Similar with Science, although I think they all kind of belong in their same tier. Now, we have two champions to talk about here in the skill. I'm going to address Valkyrie right now. I know a lot of you are going to tell me, like, you're a moron, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. I know Valkyrie, and I saw the videos from Steel 22 of her not being used in the Rich Get Richer meta. So I'm unaware that she can be used, but are you still getting those 52, 53, 54,000 scores that are often necessary to win when you're really trying to be at the tippy top of this game, winning in the Battlegrounds tournaments, that sort of thing? I don't know if she is on the regular or with enough tough defenders to justify her being up there, because that's what's happening with Hit, Monkey, and Crossbones, and Shang, and Black Panther, and these other champions. If that's the case, and that's what I'm regularly seeing happening, she's going to be up there. She's going to stay up there. But I also did want to put her up there as like a recognition that we saw her destroy the Rich Get Richer meta. She still just gets around so many defender abilities, and potential nodes are thrown at us. So I think her versatility, ironically, is what may keep her up there. I want to turn that over to you. Again, the community, let me know your stats, your scores, and where and how you're using it and what level. It'd be very, very helpful to me. And then the other one is Mantis. I know you're like, dude, you're the one saying you don't want to be over aggressive with all this stuff. That's how good I think Mantis is. I feel very strongly about this. I've watched DLL's video. I've watched Karate Mike's video. I know that MP Blaze did a stream test. I've talked with B McG, Nerd, Bryce, Na, and Campo. Everyone seems to think, no, her ability to do great damage quickly off that SB2, the Infuriate, and I can't think what the other one's called, the Intimidate, I think. Her playstyle does seem unique. I'm not, spoiler alert, right? I always say it was spoiler and then immediately spoil. I do have a Mantis now, and I'm very excited about her. Let's find out together, but I think that's where we're going to see her stay. I really, really do. And that's all for us to talk about in the tier above all for attackers. Okay, top shelf attackers, there's really only one champion to talk about, and I think she actually was a demotion. I can't recall exactly when I made this adjustment, but Black Cat. I know a lot of you are going to love Black Cat, and that's fine. You guys can call me an idiot. That's totally okay. I think there's certain metas that are really setting her up, and it's very, very particular defenders where you can cause something to fail. That doesn't mean she's not good. That's where these top shelf attackers deserve to be or should be. It's a specific meta is going to increase their value tremendously, or the amount of defenders they can take down for you that are also regularly found in decks. Because remember, that's what this is all about, is how they relate to what you're facing. If it's not that many, if it's just a small handful, then that's kind of where they go. As Evan says, you guys know how much I love Spider-Man 99. He's fantastic, but he's often not fast enough. Yes, there's defenders where he's great for, but they're not always in decks. And if they are, it's just a handful, and he's still not the fastest. So I am walking the walk on this one, not just talking the talk. That's why Black Cat's there. I know she's great. I know she's phenomenal. I know she can handle a lot for you. But those things that she can handle, there's often other skill champions that are handling them too, and they can handle other fights and maybe even faster, and they're not as concerned about what the meta is as she is. And then we're down to the pure defenders, and these are important to have in your deck. The foundation for me is dual threats, but I've learned if I really want to compete at these high levels, I need these nuke attackers, and I need these strong defenders. I can't just rely on my dual threats. That's one of the ways your defenders come in. The one we're going to talk about a few. You can see them up here. Thing. Thing is still a classic defender. I think the classic defenders are Thing, Korg, and Penny Parker. Korg still often requires a very certain play style with you landing those lights and things like that, but we're starting to have more answers. People are using CGR and things like that, and Juggernaut. Thing slows you down, even if you have phenomenal answers. That being said, Karate Mike destroyed my Thing, rank 3, SIG 200 in like 30 seconds with his Crossbones. Hitmonkey can do the same thing, and Hitmonkey and Crossbones are in a lot of decks. And even without them, people have other answers for Thing. But he's still, for the most part, it's not the level of Penny. Penny's value is really being hurt by Gallant and Hulkling and Gatling being in every single deck. Thing, I don't think it's quite at that level, and I think he's slowing down these other fights. So he's staying at this like top. He's one of the classic defenders for me, but I do want to call it out. This may be happening to Thing too. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Atuma, we're just going to need more information. It's going to take a while. We're going to need that extra one, but he's got a bit of a Thorns mechanic too. And if the fight goes on too long, you're not going to want to be in that fight with him. Let's put it that way. Iron Man Infinity War, we need to see that buff. We need to see that buff. And then Shuri, non-contact attacks being very new, going to cause some problems. Point them out. But that's it. That is it for the tier list for at the end of December. After watching all the Battlegrounds Championships matches I've watched, commentating on them, doing this myself, getting into the Gladiator circuit, and having a lot of fun with it, talking it over with the Illuminati. And then remember, Nerd, if you're interested in some Battlegrounds coaching advice, I'll probably be doing another session with him when the next Victory Track meta starts up, the new season. Thank you so much for watching. As always, let me know what I got right. Let me know what I got wrong. But if you're going to let me know what I got wrong and you want me to pay attention to it, and I do want to pay attention to it because I can learn from this, is let me know what scores you're expecting, what maybe if you're going against rank 3s, rank 4s, and then also what level, because that does make a difference, not just in the wins, but what scores and the competitiveness as far as relative to the defenders you're facing and the skill sets. That's really helpful as we go ahead and fill out this list. Thank you so much for watching. I hope your Battleground season went fantastic and you're looking forward to the next season already. Take care. I hope you either learned something, were entertained, or even better, a little bit of both. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.